So I just have to say, that was a lovely introduction, and I feel so much better because I begged you not to make me follow Barbara Corcoran. So I'm a little bit more up now. Thank you. Actually, I want to start with my family because, my God, my mother and father, oh Lord, they were not candidates. They were not candidates for success. I tell you, these folks, they were both orphaned. They were both abused. They were both used by any family that took them in, and they were always poor. And it was amazing, though. They just kept going. What they did that I watched all my life was that they experimented. They tried everything. They failed, but by the time I was in first grade, my mother and father had gotten us out of the Techwood projects, which was just stunning. And they did it because they wanted, as we often always do, they wanted me to have a perfect life. And I kind of wanted to be perfect for them too. And so what's perfect about me? Well, I can tell you I have one thing that's perfect: my hair. Watch this. Look at it. Goes right back into place. My hair is pretty perfect. Everything else, not so much. You know, but I think actually, my family, as I left this morning, said, you know what, Mother, you never did anything that actually didn't have fail written all over it, so I'm really excited about this. What I think was really important to me, though, is that I got to do good work. I got to do good work that had meaning. And I actually think young women look at us and they think, success. And what they or we didn't realize is how many failures were behind success, how much resilience you needed to succeed. And that was the most important thing. You know, in 1984, I was in Des Moines, Iowa. I know not many people know about Des Moines, but I was in Des Moines, Iowa, and I was a politician. And it was very funny. I got somebody who really bet me that I wouldn't come to New York and apply for the job of the Ms. Foundation for Women. And so on a dare, I came here. What I didn't tell him was I had a daughter that entered Barnard. I wanted to see my kid. But do you know how irresistible you are when you don't need a job? You know, it was great. And they offered me the job. And that was a little hard because I went back to Iowa and looked at what I wanted to do there. Actually, the farms were failing about that time. And the women in those farms were creating these little businesses, you know, these bakeries, these transportation businesses. And I thought I could help them. So I went to one of the big guys in Iowa and I sat down and I said, John, I want to stay here. I want to help these women. I can really help them build these enterprises where they can sell the farms. Or they don't have to sell the farms at any rate. And he said, well, Marie, I ought to tell you, the guys aren't going to let you do this. They're not going to let you do this. They ain't going to let a girl run an economic development program. Go to New York and do that. He has taken credit for everything I've ever done since then. However, I went to New York. And I did the first thing I did, though, was I found one of two women in this country who really knew about microenterprise and economic development. And I called her, Sarah Gould. I called her. I said, come work for me. And after a few months, she did come work for me. And we thought, we are going to get this done. And the first thing we will do is we are going to start to fund the little things that are out there because it was the Ms. Foundation. We were going to fund them. And we did. We put our money into them. And after a while, it didn't work. It didn't work. As a matter of fact, the kind of biggest disaster was the ice cream business in the desert. Failure. Next thing we did was we thought, well, you know, you can't do this unless we learn more about it. We just got to learn. We got to have some money, and we didn't have much money. So we went to the foundation community and we said, you know, we want to do this work, and we've got hundreds of low-income women who could start businesses. And I will never forget, this man looked at me and he said, that would marginalize them. I said, starvation is rather marginalizing, you know. And then, but the real thing was that these guys didn't think low-income women could start a business, right? So we said, okay. He finally, we kept at him, And he finally said, okay, if you can get other foundations to the tune of, I can't remember how much money at the time, it was extraordinary, but if you can get them to give you $100,000 a year for 3 years, and we'll sit at a table and learn with you. And so Sarah and I set off, and we set off for a long journey across the country, trying to convince foundations that this was a good thing. And after a long time, actually, we had a lot of foundations. But we were at the end of the road. It wouldn't kick in unless we had a certain number. And we lacked one big foundation. Failure. We looked at each other and we cried. And we decided we should go back to New York and tell the women there that after all this work, that it wasn't going to happen. We walked in the door, and somebody came up and said, MacArthur came in! The big kahuna came in! And we had enough money, and we got to learn about micro-enterprise. And, failure has success. We became the mothers of micro-enterprise in America. We got an award from the Clinton White House for our work. And one of our best, actually, entrepreneurs got a Genius Award. And her business was quilting. And she had the best story. She had a group of Appalachian women who made quilts. So she said, when she got the award, she talked about this woman that she gave the award to, and the woman was just wonderful. And then she said, but I want to know who we sold your quilt to. And the woman said, who'd you sell it to? She said, Robert Redford. And the woman just stood there. She said, what's wrong? She said, I am imagining Robert Redford's buns on my quilt. Good story. It's interesting though, when I think about that story, I think about a picture I have of me with my family. And I love it because I'm a little girl of about 5, and we're walking down the street in Atlanta, and my mother and daddy are so dressed up, and they are so gorgeous looking. And I think, what are we doing? Because I remember, we're going from loan office to loan office. We're trying to get money. I think, boy, I learned how to fundraise early. This is what we did. But they really taught me also that you keep going. You get up in the morning. You get dressed. You smile. You walk out the door, and you keep going. And then you also learn how to fail. Second story, take our daughters to work. That was an amazing program, right? That was a success. Oh my God. I tell you. Well, we'll tell a couple of things about that. The first thing was it looked like such a slam dunk. I don't know how many of you remember that Carol Gilligan was on the front page of New York Times Magazine. That's how the research came out. And she was standing there, and there were girls around her. And the story was wonderful because it's like, girls lose their confidence and they're feisty, justice-seeking voices at pre-adolescence. But, if we can support them with caring adults, then we can help them. Okay. So we decide we are going to do a national project. We are going to help the girls of America. Okay. First idea. We will get the foundation community involved. They will love this. We go to the Council on Foundations. We have all our research. We have seen Gilligan. We are set. We've got a big round table. They will all want to come and do this. We have buttons. We are here. They are not. Nobody comes. Not one foundation shows up to take care of our nation's daughters. That was a blow. That was a bummer. So we think of another thing. I won't tell you the 50 things in between because you would be embarrassed to know me. We decide that we'll do a local project with the Women's Fund of Minnesota. That'll be great. We're going to get low-income girls, and we're going to get some people from Gilligan, and we shape this project, and it is just going to go. And we're so excited, and we're excited until in about 5 weeks, there's an article in the Minnesota paper. And that article says, what a failure this program was. Yeah, public. Now, you can imagine that the Minnesota Women's Fund was not amused either. They called us, they scolded us, we deserved it. I mean, it was bad. But what happened next is take our daughters to work. We actually got somebody who helped us put all that failure together, and we put a program together that has changed the lives of millions of girls around the world. It has changed the lives of boys. because it got more attention to boys than any boy program knew how to do. And it was the only girls program that a boy wanted to come to. It was a success. It was a success. Well, finally, it wasn't just a success, by the way, for girls. It was a success for women, because the best story of all about Take Our Daughters is the little girl who raised her hand after a woman had been speaking at Brooklyn Union Gas and said, "I noticed your job was boring." And she said, "Well, maybe a little boring." She said, "Well, didn't you ever want to do something else?" She said, "Well, I had." "What do you want to do?" She said, "I'd wanted to be a singer." And the little girl said, "Well, sing me a song." And she lisped out, "Memories like the corners of our mind," in front of all these people who had never heard of anything about a buttoned-up woman. And sure enough, it taught us that our daughters watch us and they want to know the songs we've stopped singing and what we haven't brought into the world. So it worked for everybody. But my final story was the one that's most recent. And that is the story of the White House Project, my beloved White House Project. I created that at the kind of end of my career. And a couple of years ago, the board shut it down, and I was sad, to say the least. But it wasn't always a hard program to fund. It was hard because, we had some great donors. But this is what I think got messed up. There was a disconnect. Like when Winona LaDuke, the Native American activist, walked in a room, a casino in Minnesota, where Native women had come through a blizzard to get trained to run for office, she was odd, just odd. And when Congresswoman Moore, walked in a Wisconsin room, and it was full of young African American women, she was odd. As a matter of fact, she turned around in the middle of the room and said, "Who put this room together?" I was scared to say, "Yeah, me." No, because we had trained 14,000 young women of diverse backgrounds and young to run for office by that time. But I think a lot of people saw those rooms and they did not think of people who ran for office. And I think it was always hard, but it was not a failure. My friends called me to commiserate. Kitty called me. It's not a failure. What it did was, it actually changed everything that the other women's political organizations do. It actually changed the Sunday shows. The research we did changed the Sunday shows. Look at those shows on Sunday. They now show women. It actually got a movie that started with the White House Project, a television movie. It trained women on international security, but most important, it actually changed President Barbie. I mean, we got a princess made into a president that runs for president every 4 years. It actually did things differently. Well, I want to close with this. I think about my mother and father, a woman who actually took in laundry, a woman who cleaned houses, and a man who delivered papers, and I'm in awe. How did they ever get that done? Well, you know what? There was a little church in the projects called Prior Street. And Prior Street Church, the minister there looked at my family, and he saw them. He saw them, and the people there saw them. And they started to build a courage community around it, a community of courage around my folks. And it helped, it worked. It showed them what not to do and what to do, and it gave them encouragement. And that's what happened. It was interesting. I had to go down to bury my mother about 3 years ago. And when I got there, I was in the elevator with a woman from the church, and she said, "You know this church has 12 ministers, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I do." She said, "You know your mother ran this church, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." Because that's what all of us need. That's what all of us need. We need a community of courage around us. We need people who inspire us and people who tell us the truth and people who see us. Our world needs it. We need to build communities of courage so that we can take action. Failure is really messy. Really messy. But if you have help, if we have people around us, it can all smooth out.